The disease that's probably growing the most attention is tar spot. It's very common in Latin America, not near as common in the United States. I believe in 2015, Illinois and Indiana, kind of came across the disease, and I think in 2018 it really impacted grain yield, 40, 60 bushel yield losses. But from that point, it's really spread to a lot of other states, including I believe about 6 counties in Nebraska. On the eastern side of Nebraska, we're seeing tar spot. We're seeing it, can't necessarily say at this point we've seen a lot of yield loss associated with it yet, but knowing some of those states in 2018 that got hit pretty hard, it's definitely a disease we got to be on top of. It's like taking a paintbrush and putting it in a can of tar and putting that paintbrush in your palm of your hand and kind of flicking it against a wall, but in this case against leaf tissue. It's a bunch of kind of black spots. Sometimes they're nice and round, and other times they're a little bit elongated, but it looks essentially like tar. Typically, yes, preventative is going to be a better way to control those diseases versus being reactive. What I think poses some challenges with tar spot is it tends to come in a little bit later in that season, after maybe we've made that initial application for things like gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight, maybe even rust. That then now growers are, okay, you're telling me now that I have to maybe make a second later application more in that milk to dough stage. That may be the case, and it really has a lot more to do with like temperatures. As that temperatures start to kind of drop and get a little bit more moderate and maybe a little bit even on the cooler side, that's where you really see that tar spot really manifest itself and take over a field. Probably the biggest disease that I spent time addressing was really white mold. White mold in soybeans, for a lot of growers further south than normal, experienced white mold. What we're trying to do is really encourage people to take the time and to map that out by field and to pay attention over time the progression of that disease, and also trying to figure out how to navigate through that in the future. What are some simple things that you can do to help yourself? And one of the things is simply at harvest time, trying to partition those areas of the field that have the disease, leave them to be last to harvest. Simply trying to remove the movement of that disease, the scrotia or the overwintering bodies that can be trapped with the grain, can be easily spread field to field if you're not careful. What we want to really encourage customers to do is to apply early. Too often when they're pulling the trigger, it's too late, more in that R3 stage versus that R1, followed generally then by an application 2 weeks later at R2 to really maximize that protection. July is kind of the key disease window, I think, in many states for white mold, and so that's really when you want to have that full protection.